Are you familiar with Croker Babb?
No, no, what is it?
Croker Babb was a showman in America who would tour movies, and he toured taboo movies, and he famously toured a movie called Mum and Dad that he would get crowds in by putting in a birth of a baby sequence.
Okay.
I just think it's interesting. This kind
That
of
is interesting. What years was he doing that?
we're looking at the 40s, I believe,
Okay.
30s, 40s, 50s.
That sounds great. I'd like to hear about that. Yeah.
But it's just that idea of that's what I mean about the American tradition of vaudeville and the carny and so on.
Absolutely. Yeah. No. That it's something that people, I can tell, want this stuff, and it's not happening. It's this live element of having a person and people. It's something that's frustrating to me. Although I'm seeing certain changes even in just the last couple of years and how things are working, I can see trends that will happen. But it's easy relatively to get people into a music venue because and the reason for it is there's a social aspect where people know they can meet a girl or a guy or people or whatever and have a drink and have a good time interacting with people. A film, the concept is you go in a dark theater, you sit by yourself and look up at the screen and you're enclosed in this thing. But something about this more vaudeville approach where there are people that are interacting with each other and talking and what is it does have elements that people can get upset, and I've had arguments in the audiences and screaming and all kinds of things, but there's something invigorating about that.
But the other thing is, and the most rewarding thing maybe, is being able to go out and actually meet people and actually see the world, as opposed to sitting in an office.
I mean, as much as there are difficulties, there's great pleasure in it too. And as I'm touring with the films, it's different from acting in these corporate films where you're kind of in a bubble. I've acted in different countries and different places, but you're pretty much inside of the culture that's bought out to those areas. But when I'm touring with my films, there are promoters and theater owners and people that I'm working with more, and I can kind of see the actuality of the culture itself more readily. And there are differentiations throughout the U.S. and throughout the world, and it's interesting to see. It's actually nice to see that there are these differentiations. I like that different people have slightly or majorly different ways of thinking about things, and they work. They work differently. It's something that should be known throughout the world, that different ways of thinking work. They don't have to be a problem. Sometimes people confuse, though, think that what I'm doing is just kind of rebelling against corporatism, which isn't quite accurate. One of the filmmakers I thought about a lot while I was making What Is It is Stanley Kubrick. And Stanley Kubrick worked within not only the corporate system, but like the most difficult corporate system, the studio system, and did it incredibly well with incredibly thoughtful material that was mass marketed, and did not a single film ever by Stanley Kubrick theatrically lost money. That almost no commercial filmmaker, I don't even know of another commercial filmmaker that can claim that, and that's quite a feat. And I don't think it's impossible. I think that utilizing corporatism and getting interesting, thoughtful things out is an ultimate goal. I don't have to make that happen, but I'm certainly not against it. If I could go and work within the corporate systems and get what I wanted to get across, great. I'd love to, but right now it's very difficult, and it would take a lot of steps to get to that point to be able to really do that.
Yeah. So is there any filmmakers who working in the corporate system who you are interested in, who people should?
Well, sure. I mean, there's all kinds of great filmmakers that are working in the corporate system, but some of them step in and out of it. Werner Herzog is still, viably active and doing great work, and it's nice. I know him a bit. I've known him since 1990, and I can see that he's gone back and forth and how he works on things, but he's still doing excellent work. I can see that David Lynch is stepping back and forth and how he's working with corporatism. In his last film, he basically was self-distributing that, which I can see that there's business elements that are redefining and being figured out. So it's hard to say how it will end up, but it's obvious there's a struggle with people that are really trying to get things forward.
Do you think it's a bit different for someone like Herzog because he comes from a European tradition and there's a different relationship to funding films? And
well, probably, but I mean, he definitely early in his career was being very. He's somebody that will argue there's no such thing as independent cinema, which I totally understand where he's coming from. I mean, you always have people that you're working with that are helping you, unless you like shot it yourself, holding it, and then went into the laboratory and developed it. And I mean, it's just there's so many elements that come behind a film. So this idea of independent, and even to me, the idea of the independent versus studio, to me, it's the distribution markets, which are the corporate markets, that end up having dictation over what the content is and what's put forth or not to the mass audience. He started out doing things, with a very unique vision, but part of it is that I think at that time the German government was specifically funding people because they wanted a new identity for Germany after World War II.
Yeah.
And so it was a unique situation where they were particularly looking for people that had unusual ideas because they wanted something completely different. So they had people like Herzog and Rainer Werner Fassbinder, these great, unique, intelligent filmmakers that were being funded by the government. I don't know of another situation where that happened. And of course, it changed over the years, and then Herzog has gone on his own way.
Well, when you see the film of him eating his shoe, I think that shows exactly how far he will go to cinema.
Yeah, he's great. I really admire Herzog. Yeah.
But you now spend part of your year in Europe. So do you think that's going to change the way you approach filmmaking, your own filmmaking practice?
Well, mainly because I own the property in the Czech Republic, and I'm making a small soundstage there. And the reason for that is to continue lowering my costs. If I can continue reutilizing sets that I've built, I like working on sets, and there's a certain kind of visual beauty that can happen. And that it's actually expensive to work on sets unless you're able to reutilize elements. And so I'm thinking of several productions in a row that I can utilize portions of each other to continue to lower my costs. I've bought a certain amount of equipment and things that will continue to not make me have to go into the inflated corporate elements of, I have digitizing 2K digitizing machines from 35 millimeter, and I have a 35 millimeter out, and I just purchased 35 millimeter camera equipment. So there's still expense in the development of the film and all that. It's really more just how I'm thinking about making the films as opposed to being in Europe or in the United States. It's just an approach to making the films that I know I can fund them at a relatively low rate if I do it in a certain process. And I don't want to have to worry about going to these corporate elements that they're thinking about something completely different from what I'm thinking about, and not, and I understand there's a world that there is a reality for them, and there's a world that's a reality for me, and they do not necessarily at this point in time intertwine, and it's just pointless to worry about that. I've just got to focus on trying to make films that I still think can have that I want to have a visual spectacle to them, but I do know how to do that, and not be so expensive that I basically can fund them.
Okay, well that's great. Thanks very much for your time on that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Very enjoyable.
Have a good time whilst you're in Australia.
Yeah, and again, people should look on CrispinGlover.com and see where I'm going to be and sign up and all of that. So I appreciate it.